Amazing. Well, welcome everyone to our Founders Fireside Chat, Nurturing Entrepreneurship in the UAE. My name is Gianna. I'm the program manager here at Aerospace Accelerated, and I will be your moderator for today. Thank you all for joining us and for taking some time out of your busy schedules to hear from two seasoned entrepreneurs in the UAE. So without further ado, please welcome our panelists. First up, we have Akram Amir, who is part of the Aerospace Accelerated Cohort 4 program. Akram is the CEO and founder of AR Engineering. He holds a Master's of Science in Mechanical Engineering and a Bachelor of Engineering in Aerospace Technology from Coventry University. Then we have our second panelist. Please welcome Jamil Shinawi. He is the CEO and co-founder of AHOY. Now, Jamil launched his first startup when he was just 14 years old and had his first exit when he was 16 years of age. And to date, he has built and sold over 9 companies. He's also an angel investor, a distinguished keynote speaker, and the jury on the Fast Forward Challenge by DHL Innovations Center. Thank you both for joining us today. Now, before we jump in, could you both share more about your work, Akram at AR Engineering and Jamil at AHOY, and maybe share a bit more about your motivations for starting your ventures?
Sure. I'll let Jamil go first. تفضل. حياك الله جميل.
الله يحييك أهلا. I mean, so when we started AHOY back in 2018, the purpose was to establish a deep tech company, a company that develops for other developers. So it's quite a unique thing in the region because most of the startups in the region are focusing on consumers, apps, platforms, and SaaS, basically. I think that the biggest opportunity, and we've lacked a lot of stuff in biomedical and also material science and aerospace, and we are very well suited. The engineering talent here is amazing because of oil and gas and all of the other industries that came around that. But at the same time, we are huge consumers of technology, and we haven't had anybody venture into that. So AHOY came to do that with a huge focus on operations research. It's a sector agnostic technology that allows other developers to basically develop whatever they need and have almost orchestrated both operations and optimization. So that's kind of what AHOY does. We are in more than 68 geographies today. We started in the UAE at our engineering bases in Dubai, but we consider ourselves and our technology to be border crossing and to humanity, basically.
Perfect. Thanks, Jamil. Akram?
Yeah. So basically, roughly back in 2019, end of 2019, it was November 2019. That's when AR engineering started. It came from a problem we used to face at college. Me and also co-founders, we shared some common things where we were studying engineering, and me specifically aerospace, and we saw that there was a gap between what we used to study and practice and what was implemented and required from us in the industry. And there was very few I would say universities in our region that actually offered very updated courses, curriculums, training programs, or whatever. So a lot of the guys that used to graduate used to face a lot of difficulties when it came to them trying to get a job in the industry. So that's when we were like, okay, since this is a problem that exists, and we have very few actually practical training centers or places where people can get experience, what can we do about it? And then that's when we were like, okay, let's try to do something. Let's try to leverage some new technology that can visualize things better. You bring new systems to the current old methods of training or even education. And that's how AR engineering came about. And the choice of the solution came interestingly. And this is something pretty cool. It's like I've always been a person that loves to watch the latest releases of technology, always on like signed up to every single newsletter, every single new company announcement. So I was watching Apple's WWDC keynote, and I saw them the first time when they announced that now all our mobile devices, the new ones, the Apple are going to support AR. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So now the devices in our hands are going to be able to visualize things, right? It will drop some stuff on the table. So it's like, then, all right, let me search. Is there any augmented reality engineering solution out there? That was back in 2019, and I couldn't find any that was actually in the way we wanted. Majority of them were in the enterprise sector, back in the R&D offices, and at that time it was pretty expensive and early. So I was like, okay, then I guess that here's something for us to do, and that's what we did. Yeah,
That's great. Very inspiring. Thank you both for your introductions. Now, before we get started, I wanted to remind our audience to leave your questions in the Q&A box below for the panelists to answer later on in the discussion. Now, let's shift our focus a bit to the entrepreneurial landscape and ecosystem in the UAE. With the UAE being ranked first in the 2022 Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Index for having the best ecosystem for startups and entrepreneurs worldwide, and with Dubai aiming to produce over 20 unicorn companies by 2030, it's evident that the spotlight is firmly on the UAE. And also given the significant success of Careem, which is the everything app of the region, which became the first unicorn exit there, this has probably had a very profound impact in the entrepreneurial community there. So I'm curious to know how or if Careem's success has influenced or shaped the entrepreneurial landscape in the UAE, given its recent ranks. Has the UAE maybe experienced something similar to the PayPal mafia? Could this have triggered it? Any thoughts?
Jamil, go first. That's your ballpark.
I might have a somewhat of contrarian point of view here. I think Careem's success ruined part of the ecosystem in a way. Unfortunately, a lot of stereotypes came out of that. So a lot of funding goes only to ex-McKinsey's, and everybody just wants to stereotype the Careem example. Although when you really think about it, there wasn't much innovation, and what Careem did, they just copied Uber, basically. With all due respect to the guys, they've done an amazing job. Uber had to buy them out to get into the market. And that's not wrong, but that is not the totality of entrepreneurship. Yes, UAE does rank very high on the ecosystem. I'm here, and I've started startups in the US, the UK, and Saudi Arabia, but I'm today in Dubai, and there's a reason for that. But still, funding is just not available here. All of the funding is coming from outside of the UAE, and there is very little to no funding that goes to deep tech and engineering-based startups, unfortunately. And biggest reason is because everybody is just looking for another Careem. I think the bar is set very low, just looking for unicorns, while we have the population and the GDPs and the economies that can yield decacorns, actually. And that is basically 10x the unicorn at a minimum, or multiple tens of billions of dollars in valuation. I think we're not aiming high enough. I think the talent is amazing. I think the ecosystem that is available is amazing. I think we should have more entrepreneurs investing and less bankers investing. And this is one of the things that makes Silicon Valley actually. We should look at a little bit of more social mobility, which governments really want. They want people to go up in the ranks by merit of success and hard work, rather than family name, title, gender, and all those old stereotypes. I think these are the challenges that are still persistent today. It's very easy to paint a nice picture and say nice things, but I think talking about the truth and the realities actually could yield better results.
Mhm.
And on the mafia effect, we definitely don't have anything that is similar to a PayPal mafia, not even a 1% of it. Nobody goes, in the words of Peter Thiel, nobody goes from 0 to 1 in this part of the world. Everybody goes from 1 to 100. We borrow the 0 to 1 moment from the Silicon Valley, and we try to replicate it here and go 1 to 100. We have a different populations, different markets, different environments. Copycats and blind copies, unfortunately, are a bit disappointing to me, personally.
Akram?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons it's pretty valuable to chat with founders and get their opinion on the market and how the entrepreneurial ecosystem is going, because we've faced these difficulties, and what Jamil touched on, something that we actually faced hands-on on the ground. We since I would believe even a bit before COVID, so during COVID period and after COVID period, that the growth that we've seen, the number of if we're going to talk about the VCs and all these corporate or big bankers and investors have been growing dramatically, not just in the UAE but also Saudi Arabia and other countries. But I faced this challenge even before COVID, before that big growth happened. Basically, what I noticed is that when it comes to technology startups that are starting natively on the ground here in the UAE, inside Arabia, it doesn't matter which Arab country you're talking about or which country in the Middle East, when they're looking for funding or support from different organizations, whether it's research centers or any type of governmental entity, the guys sitting on the other side, they typically they can evaluate numbers, ROIs, but it's hard for them to evaluate the use case or the technology solution, or if it's valuable or impactful. So on our side, for example, we had a solution that's pretty useful and good in helping the aerospace industry, and helping the guys better train, better learn, educate, and had a certain type of impact. And whenever they looked at, and we spoke to many other VCs and investors out there, they couldn't fully grasp what we had in hand and what we were pitching. They're like, "What is this?" And then they're like, "This is not something familiar." They're like, and then one of them was super honest with us back then. He's like, "Listen, come with us with a e-commerce startup. Come with us with something that is similar to delivery. We can evaluate that. We can understand it. But what is a solution that's going to help education and training and AR and visualization? That's something it's only in America. That's something only in Europe." So we faced that a lot back then. Something I actually loved that I've been seeing now recently, I would say especially in the last year, in the UAE, is that we're getting a bit more experts that are working in those corporate entities that are now they start considering, okay, no, you know what, I think we need to educate ourselves on technology, so when we evaluate a lot of the startup ideas that come to us, or the startups, we can perhaps give them more constructive feedback. But yeah, if you want to talk about the ecosystem, how it grew after the Kareem thing happened, yeah, a lot of VCs came, a lot of eyes came, but to be honest, that's what they look at. They look at, okay, are you an ex, as you said, ex McKinsey? Have you an ex-founder of another startup? You got that big name and label on you. That's when they're gonna actually respect you and pick up the phone or even take the first meeting. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have that, unfortunately, but even if you have a very solid team and use case or solution, then you're not going to be in the very well respected or treated. Nevertheless, that's changing right now. I've been noticing that personally. Alhamdulillah, that's a good sign. Nevertheless, I would hope that the pace of that change will grow much faster in the upcoming months or years, inshallah. So let's see. So yeah, that's a challenge we face in the sector, and that's something I've noticed as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Akram, as a first time an entrepreneur, what support have you leaned on then to basically propel AR engineering to the next level?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So basically, we wanted to register our company at that time. Of course, if you talk about AR is basically a technology, software development studio. You could fall under a lot of these categories. So back then, we're searching for places that will, perhaps give us support and let us start. Out of all the places in the UAE, just a couple actually understood what our business plan was and what we wanted to do, and were actually told us, hey, you know what, this is actually good, and you're welcome. One of those places was Sharjah Research Park. In fact, I was actually surprised by this, but we found them after, after we got rejected in many places, and got like, they told us, hey, listen, you want to set up here, you got to pay X amount, and it was huge. We couldn't afford that at that time. We want to put the money in something more important, rather than just spending on licensing. So getting support to start from scratch was pretty tough. But alhamdulillah, through the Sharjah Research Park, we got it. Something I liked about them, and this is something that was unique about them till this day, is that they actually got people there that understand advanced tech. Like if you talk to them about AR, they actually know a lot about it. Even back in 2019, they're like, yeah, we know what AR is basically, and we understand that it has big growth and so on. Please tell us, what are you doing about it? What's the unique thing that you have? And actually, they had a background about it, which was pretty rare. And that time, back in that time, there wasn't many. So I hope there's going to be many of them in the region, inshallah. So yeah, and they helped us out. They incubated us, support in terms of licensing, facilities, R&D facilities. As a startup, when you're growing, it's sometimes you need a vibrant ecosystem. You don't want to just be in a small office or table that's your license, and you're not in an engaging community. But that research park, for example, and that's my case, I'm sure everybody else has different stories. In the research park that we are at, it's open. The whole building's for you. You can go there. A lot of people are coming. There's a lot of networking events going on. You can use different type of facilities and so on. So that helps a lot grow deep tech startups, or start working on very cool new technologies, because you can network regularly, and with that you can build a better team and improve your product. So that was something unique I saw here. And actually there's one ecosystem similar to Sharjah Research Park in Saudi Arabia. And even at that time I contacted them, but they did not know anything about AR. They're like, listen, this is not something we work on or interested in or even understand and supporting. So yeah, so all the best. So so that was something that happened. So yeah, this is challenging, but you have to really knock on every single door, because you never know where you're going to find the kind of support. And yeah, so that was what happened with us.
That's true, and that's amazing to hear. Now, Jamil, you've built businesses in the MENA region and globally. How does this compare to growing a business in the UAE? What is different here, and what factor really motivated you to build AHOY in the MENA region?
So why in the MENA region? Three different reasons. The first reason is taxes and technology export regulations. So in the USA, which is the best market to be for deep tech, genuinely, and the best market to build in, from pool of talent to government support and tax back, but that doesn't come for free. There are a lot of restrictions to what you can do, and a lot of startups don't know that until quite late in the game. So this not being my first rodeo, I kind of figured this out. So I learned from my mistakes. So I decided I'm going to start with in the MENA region. I started in Pakistan, in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, and in UAE. I started as well in Africa, a couple of businesses as well in the UK and the USA. So I've had a couple as well in Australia and Canada. And out of all of these regions, the only place that was basically that fit our criteria being in the MENA region, close proximity to the two largest markets in MENA, which are Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and then diversity. Diversity is the most important thing to us, because diversity and a bit of an open-mindedness in the society, or basically the local community, is something that is extremely important to us. You can't innovate in a closed environment, and you can't as well innovate without diversity of people from different cultures and backgrounds. UAE just hit the mark. In addition to the cost. So I know that Dubai, for example, or Abu Dhabi is perceived as one of these luxe places, but in reality, there are a lot of tech nomads that live here and work from here. Government fees are quite low to live with a family, especially in Dubai. For example, compared to Saudi Arabia, which is the undoubtedly the largest market with the extremely strong purchasing power, which is our main market in MENA. And I mean, UAE has a very favorable tax position as well, with amazing tax treaties with the biggest number of countries in the world. UAE ranks in the top 10 as soft power. All of that made it a perfect export um, pinpoint for us to basically be at an export technology farm. So that is what actually drove us to come here. I'll be very honest. The role of government is not to feed startups. The role of government is to create that infrastructure, and that does exist here in a very beautiful and nice way. The ecosystem effect is not complete. The circuit is broken definitely, but those are just growing pains, in my opinion. And it is sort of an egg and chicken problem, but there are a lot of remedies to these issues, starting from founder communities that does exist, which is a thing that started, I would say, only a year ago, all the way to the regional or neighboring countries that do invest actually in tech. Typically, family offices in the UAE and most of venture capital in the UAE are a bit cheapish to deep tech and engineering. They're quite tame. They behave like private equity more than venture capital, in my opinion, unless you are doing something, as Akram was saying, e-commerce, SaaS, D2C, they love that stuff. I mean, that is what is on demand. But again, it's quite limited as well. There are a lot of checks and balances, and you need to look a certain way, not just look it, but a certain resume and CV have to be in place to get that funding, which is something we're trying to change. All of it.
And talking about funding, I know AHOY raised, I think, a 20 million round last year. What was your game plan here? Were there any specific funding sources or programs that played a key role in this success?
So luckily, AHOY is a profitable company. So when we started raising, all the venture capital investors told us that come back when you have more traction, and you must be a bit crazy to start such a business. Some even told us that we're trying to scam people out of their money, and that was basically, and the most biggest thing was, I don't understand what you're doing, so it must be bad, basically. So I'm not going to invest in it. There was no due diligence of any sort, unfortunately. And people mostly invest based on transitive trust and FOMO and follow-on. They all want a leader when it comes to VCs. So we went directly to family offices, and basically we went to the LPs of the VC. The people who invested in VCs are technically, in MENA especially, are basically the middlemen. They aggregate the money from different people who actually want to invest in things that do have an impact and invest it on those startups. But they haven't been getting neither the returns nor that impact as well. So a lot of them, when you go to them, they see this and they see the behavior of the funds that they've invested in. They're like, holy, okay, now I'm going to go and invest in the startup. So this is what happened with us. And luckily, a lot of them were sophisticated enough to not only understand what we do, but actually be added value investors as well. Something that I haven't seen with most VCs here. I've seen VCs that shut startups down by leaking news in Bloomberg, but I have never seen VCs that actively go hold the hand of the entrepreneur, be on his side. You know, I've seen VCs that demand a board seat and do nothing. I haven't seen what happens in Silicon Valley or the UK, for example, or Canada. You know, startups that really get a lot of help from venture capital. I think it's time for a drastic change when it comes to venture capital here. And I think everybody has had enough, and we have enough successful entrepreneurs to have that change, I think.
I agree. Then based on this, would you say access to funding in the region is or would be one of the top choice or top reasons why entrepreneurial ventures fail?
Access to smart money definitely is a big issue. Access to money in the right time is another issue. Unfortunately, in time is a double-edged sword. So one is because you're talking to a huge number of investors, and they're all the wrong ones. They don't have mandates. They don't follow mandates. Their websites don't really tell you. They didn't help you save time, basically. So that's one issue. The other issue is that they don't respect the urgency that a startup has. You see, if you go to a fund and you are at a week away from your runway, and you go to a fund in New York or anywhere probably, in the West world, people will be like, yeah, I believe in you. I love this. You got only a week of runway. I'm gonna move fast. I'm gonna, do this. If you say you got a week of runway here, I don't know. It's like a huge stigma. It's like you really did something wrong. How could you have a week of runway? Like nobody gets it. That's it. So you start saying that you've been bootstrapping and stuff like that. Nobody gets it. That's it. If you were good, you wouldn't be in this position now, wouldn't you? This is the kind of attitude. It's very unsupported by the majority of investors, and this is what is starting to change, as Akram said, but not fast enough, unfortunately. So yes, access to funding, you rightly said, is a huge challenge. Access to the right money in the right time is the issue.
And well, we're getting close to our time to go to Q&A, but before we do, I wanted to ask you both, looking ahead, looking 5 to 10 years from here, what do you envision? What do you envision the future of the UAE ecosystem to be? Are there any maybe specific industries or key areas that you see it growing more than others?
Yeah, sure. From what I'm seeing overall is that especially with the governmental sector or government-backed accelerators, incubators, they're putting bigger emphasis on strategic sectors, especially after COVID, when there was a lot of shortages in very important domains, whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, things that have to do with keeping the economy going even at worst times. During COVID, a lot of logistics things were cut, and a lot of sectors they're seeking to localize a lot of the development of various things, and I'm seeing a lot of this going in very strategic things, even medical sector as well. And manufacturing includes, by the way, a lot of stuff. It could be medical, it could be aerospace, it could be various type of technologies as well. They're giving a lot of priority to this. For example, this year it's been the buzzword sustainability. Like they're putting a lot of emphasis on this, but nevertheless, this is very short term in terms of what's going on in the media. But no matter what the goal of for example, let's say in the next 5-10 years, right? Let's say, for example, one of the main aims, okay, we need to boost, for example, we need to localize a lot of the manufacturing tech, our manufacturing solutions, agriculture technology, and they want to, maybe get a lot of those best quality of startups here and grow them, for example. There's a couple of important things, because there's no way we can improve if we don't learn from our lessons, right? So in the past, what I've noticed is that a lot of the people that run the various accelerators, incubators, VC funds here, when you meet them, when you look at their background, right? So those guys, they sign off and they approve multi-million-dollar deals or even hundreds of thousands, doesn't matter. their backgrounds, a lot of them are just basic finance and business, and very few of them are actually understand the difficulties of opening up a startup or technology company. Very few of them have gone through a lot of the efforts and headache. So one of the very important things that I believe that is, and I'm seeing this change, but yeah, the pace has to be faster. There has to be more engagement between previous founders, people that have done such things before, people that have worked very closely with successful startups, whether it's abroad or here, that can consult and work together with a lot of the various funds or VCs or whatever you want to call them, accelerators, incubators, so they can really make better choices and decisions. Because what I'm seeing right now is that there's very important emphasis on a lot of key strategic sectors, improving education, healthcare, agriculture. So there's a lot of investment going into these sectors, but it's very important to get the best quality of people that are on those boards and on those organizations that can take the decisions wisely, and not just do it based on looks or feel or being, you know, a good friend, or based on a reputation or company or background, you know, like very important things. So well, this is something I really hope the next 5-10 years is something that we're going to see change and improve. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just to add to what you just said, and I'm not going to take a lot of time. Please stop me, Gianna, if I stop. You know, so in the next to 5-10 years, I think UAE will probably be a perfect market for niches. And UAE has a very good location and a very good, again, tax position globally to actually sit and export. It's an amazing place to fit in, regardless where you're from. Honestly, I haven't seen such an open, dynamic, and diverse place such as Dubai in my life. There are similars like Singapore, London, and New York, but quite similar, but nothing that comes with the quality of life, the value of quality of life as well, and the cost of quality of life that Dubai has. The culture is extremely nice for a long-term livelihood and family style. Now, I believe also that if we've seen more funds that actually are promoting the right investment culture, that could solidify this position here. The UAE already is advanced when it comes to aerospace, space, and aeronautics. The UAE is getting more and more advanced in defense, passive defense, and technologies in biomedical research as well. I mean, I don't know if you've seen The King of Clones on Netflix. It's an amazing documentary, but that's just an example of how they have cloned 10 years, a camel that died 10 years ago. So, I mean, amazing stuff does happen here. Don't forget that the UAE pioneered cloud seeding. We have rain in the summer here. This is the best summer I've been in Dubai since 10 years. It is an amazing place. It is a place of achievement. I think one of the things that could do better as well, other than investment here, is definitely having more of enterprise and government purchasing from startups, because current policies do not really promote that. So the market locally is almost non-existent to almost most of the startups. But it is a great place to actually build from. So in the next 5-10 years, definitely those niches, and I'll add to that nuclear energy and solar energy as well. I mean, the UAE is definitely a great place to base in from and then access other markets.
Great, thanks for sharing. And one more question before we jump into our open Q&A. If you guys could go back in time to your first ventures, what would you like? What would have you liked to know back then that you know now? What's one piece of advice that you can give to let's say aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, by the way. Yeah, of course, there's not one thing. There's many things, but of course we have to, now since we have to choose one thing, so we have to give priorities to whatever things we faced. But no, there's a lot of things. I mean, I've noticed, so it depends on the background of the person, but let's say, for example, you're a person that you're starting young, ambitious and all that stuff. You have to understand that a lot, especially if you're in the, I would say, B2B sector, to be honest, even B2C, because at the end, to raise funds and all that support you need, you're going to have to deal with people that are going to either support or you're going to hire. You have to become better at understanding how to deal with people in general. In terms of like reading them, understanding if they're serious, real supportive, lying to you, honest to you, if they respect you, and all that stuff. That's something that as first-time founders, you need to become good at. Because you might think that person, for example, really cares about what you have, and you're going to give him a lot of your time and effort, and turns out that in fact he doesn't. That person barely cares about what you just, all the hours and days and months that you spent with him. So yeah, that's something actually it'd be very useful for a lot of the early founders to understand that you need to become actually a bit better in dealing with people. And there's a lot of things that go under that, and that actually is very similar to many things. I'll give you an example. I actually started to do this more. The beginnings, we were not very active in engaging with the community much, but ever since we started doing that, we've found tremendous benefits. Something happened interestingly after COVID. So Jamil was a judge in a startup competition, the one with DHL. That's how I met him. And during that time, I wasn't even thinking before then to apply to a lot of startup competitions and challenges. I was like, man, that's not our domain. What am I going to go and do and apply to a logistics competition? Well, apparently they liked what we had. They're like, okay, your solution actually has a fit in logistics technically. Anyways, I went. Okay, so we didn't win that competition, but it's fine. But what happened is that we met a lot of great people, and one of the guys that was sitting invited us to another competition that was going to happen 2 weeks afterwards in Expo. So it was held, and it was the only, I think, pitch competition in Expo at that time for startups. And this is something I really love about the UAE. UAE is so vibrant. There's so many events going on. And like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks time, there's so much stuff going on. And there's no way you're going to be able to catch up with all of it. No way. So there's like so much stuff going on. Yeah, and we went to that other challenge or competition, also logistics. And coincidentally, majority of the startups were the same ones that came to the DHL one, exactly the same, but different judges. But the selection criteria was different. The selection criteria, they were looking for a specific solutions that they will use rather than a startup that will grow in big numbers. So alhamdulillah, we won that competition. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, ever since we started to do this more, just engage with the community, engage with people, go meet, and whether you succeed or not, doesn't matter. You never know who you're going to meet that might open up other doors for you. That's just one example. There's many others. So yeah, become better reading people, engage more. There's a big benefit to that. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just add to that. The community is definitely, founder community especially. N5 is great. We got one that's called 2469. I put the link here. These are not-for-profit communities. They are founder communities. We sit in cafes, talk, help each other, support each other, introduce each other to investors and clients, and even key employees sometimes. That's what you need. Now, when it comes to you as a founder, have a co-founder. I really recommend it. It's a lonely journey, and a lot of investors consider it now a major risk not to have a co-founder. Stay humble and always go to first principles. Think about the why and the why nots of everything. Don't just do things because it is the way everybody does it. Honestly, first principle thinking, staying humble, will help you to have that mental agility as well. Fail, accept rejection, be strong, and stay humble. I repeat, really stay humble, because people really miss the point of this whole thing. It's not the glory. There is a huge struggle to entrepreneurship. People do you have to have the right intention. You're doing this for a better life, for better people, and yeah, it would be great to actually make money along the way. Making money is a side result. It's not the main one.
I agree. I love that advice, guys. I hope you wrote that down somewhere. I see The questions have been answered. Amazing. So just to end this on a final note, we have 4 minutes left. What's next for AR engineering and AHOY?
Yeah. All right, sure. I'll go first. So basically, one of the with time, we start to notice which area can we provide the biggest value. Even though in the beginnings, during the startup, growth stages and a couple of various months and years that we work in, we find out that there's various areas that there's no need for us to even explore or touch that we thought will be amazing and beautiful, and then we find out that we've got certain strengths and values in certain areas that is very, very valuable to put our efforts in. So basically, we found a very good fit in certain areas that have to do with upskilling and education and training in the UAE specifically as a start, especially with the big emphasis on localization of big manufacturing technologies and the investment that is going in various sectors. I mean, just in aerospace alone, for example, or in the defense. So we started to focus a lot on this. And before this is something we never had a bigger thought to. We're kind of AR is a cool technology, yeah, that has a good potential, and yeah, let's make some like things that just can be adopted easily. We never thought about how strategic we could be with the direction of the country, for example, and now it opened up this, especially the engagement, I would say, thankfully, big time, to a lot of the engagement we had with big governmental institutions in Abu Dhabi, for example, thanks to ARX as well. During the last visit in Abu Dhabi and during the defense conference, we understood a lot of the big directions that where the country is heading. So we're like, okay, we actually have a part of our solution and core values that actually align with these directions. Why don't we combine that? And then that's where we saw big potential in terms of opportunities and growth. And that came through engagement, through continuous networking, learning from our mistakes, what things we've been pitching before that were wrong or basically did not lead anywhere, and aligned ourselves with something that is to the interest of the country and the region and also people around us. So alhamdulillah, we were able to find that fit, and we're just going to keep on going on with it. So that's with us, in regards to us. Yeah.
Amazing. And Jamil, what's next for AHOY?
I mean, AHOY, we basically, probably what we're more passionate about is how we have helped upskilling and changing the lives of so many engineers and developers. Some people could not just even afford, but couldn't even have the chance in their wildest dreams to go to an Ivy League school or go to an international school. We have engineers and developers from countries such as Sudan, Kenya, Bangladesh, and they are really smart people, very talented. But the education system did not equip them to be at the forefront. And with all due respect to all online content, it's not enough to go and compete without those years of experience. So today we have really helped a lot of those people to actually come to the global stage and say, I actually can replace 10 people alone. And that is the competitive advantage that we have given a lot of people. And when we look at governments and how many lives have been saved, how much CO2 is being saved, how much mobility, social mobility and social equality and financial equality it gives people, it's just amazing. And that is not due to us, but it's due to our customers. You have to understand that what we do is a developer tool. We don't know what you can achieve with it. It's what you do with it that actually has that good impact. But it's just beautiful to see that we've been enabling that. We've been enabling safe travel as well in aviation. We've been reducing traffic accidents. We've been impacting GDPs positively. One of the biggest economies in the Middle East just achieved a 0.4% GDP enhancement or increase due to a use case with our tech. And they expect that to be compounded by 11% or grow to 11% in the next 5 to 10 years. And that is the kind of stuff that actually gets us out of the bed every morning. It's not the growth, although we're growing like almost 3K% year on year. But that, yeah, it's nice, but it's not actually what we're passionate about. We're more passionate about this.
I love that. It's really making a difference in the world. That's amazing. And with that, on that note, we're gonna wrap up this session. A big thank you to our panelists for joining us today. We hope you all enjoyed the session and hopefully learned something new. Don't forget to stay in the loop with everything going on at AX. So be sure to check our social media. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Until next time, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day, everybody. Thank you all. Thank you, Gianna, for having us.
No, take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. See you around.
Bye bye.